Welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast, where we sit down and have real conversations with business leaders that have been where you are. During these interviews, we'll dive into what it takes to improve systems and champion processes that maximize performance. Each week, our trailblazing guests share their experiences and understanding of the workforce to help inspire change, challenge our thinking, and share what it takes to successfully travel the road to profitability. Now here's our host, co-founder and chief evangelist of About Time and WorkMax, Mike Merrill.
Hello and welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Merrill, and today we are sitting down again with a nice follow-up discussion with our friend Trent Cotney. Trent is the CEO of Cotney Attorneys and Consultants, and also an author of a book called OSHA Defense for the construction industry. So as we wrap up the year, Trent and I are going to cover what changed in this past year and also what we can expect with OSHA regulations going into 2022. So hello, Trent. Thanks for joining us on the podcast today.
Hey, Mike, it's great to be here. I'm glad we had the opportunity to talk again. I'm looking forward to our conversations today.
Yeah, and it was fun meeting you at the Best of Success out in Dallas area. Lots of fun to shake your hand and introduce myself in person.
I tell you what, that was a great event, and it was good seeing you. I had a really good time.
Yeah, it sure was. Love the roofing industry, and you're a great advocate for them. So we're excited to talk about that today.
Great.
So let's kick off the discussion by talking about what you saw the impact was of the COVID-19 pandemic for OSHA in 2021.
So COVID-19 has been a very interesting time for contractors and other industries as well. And, you know, it was interesting. I was just talking to someone else earlier today about how it's really affected the workforce. And, you know, one of the things that you see from a safety perspective is I'm starting to see a lot of sloppiness. I'm starting to see apathy. And I think some of that is caused by, you know, COVID-19 with remote work, with other people, just that culture not being as connected as it once was. I'm starting to see more and more mistakes. So, you know, when COVID-19 first happened, there was a lot of push against OSHA saying, hey, you guys needed to do something. And for the most part, they were pretty hands off. Then I was concerned, and I think a lot of other people were concerned that they were going to do an emergency temporary standard as it relates to COVID. Well, at that time, they did one for healthcare, but construction managed to avoid it. Now, fast forward, we've got a whole different set of concerns, and that is the Biden administration has put out a variety of different executive orders and agency action related to mandates. In particular, there's one where he is asking OSHA to enforce an emergency temporary standard with regard to vaccine mandates. And what's interesting about this, Mike, is that he has said that what he wants is any employer that has over 100 employees, they got to either vaccine their employees, or they got to engage in regular testing, which is, by definition, at least once a week. So with that, a lot of issues have come out. Obviously, they're still in the rulemaking process. There will be legal challenges, but it's been a mess. I'll be honest with you. It's been crazy trying to keep up with all the different variations of what we started to see as it relates to vaccines and COVID-19.
Yeah, I can't imagine that any of us could have predicted things to go the way they have. But I mean, what's most surprising to you after looking back on this last year?
I think what really surprises me is just sort of the how everything is hit at once, right? It's made it very difficult for an employer to be an employer. I mean, you think about it from a construction standpoint, you've got, material shortages, you've got these vaccine related issues. Keeping people employed and skilled labor is still the biggest threat out there, so I am surprised that we've had to tackle as many issues at the same time. Usually there is one issue at a time. We've had a dozen. It's been a lot for everyone to deal with.
Yeah, a lot more than the left-right combo. It's like jab, 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 right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. This is the the 24 hit combo kind of thing we're looking at right now. So.
Wow. Well, I know you just had an update to your book, which we talked about at the beginning of the podcast. What did you update and change in there?
So, yeah, we came out with a couple of different books. One was the latest version of OSHA Defense for the construction industry. And in that book, what we did is we updated it throughout. I added another chapter on what the current regulations were or what I anticipated were going to come out. I try to do that. I try to give updates every 2 years so that the book stays fresh. And then we came out with another book, OSHA Defense Know Your Rights, which is for general industry. So if you are non-construction, but you're still curious as to what your rights might be in a manufacturing plant or in a facility or agriculture, or whatever it might be, we kind of go through all those different things. So it was great, and I always enjoy updating those books because it gives me an opportunity to learn some more, and I'm always learning. So
Yeah, I love that, and I appreciate that. We actually we've given quite a few of those books away, and I know people have been very appreciative and said that they would find them certainly useful for some of the things that they're facing today.
great, glad to hear that.
So tell us this, if you could share with the listeners, what do you expect 2022 to look like? I know obviously you don't have a crystal ball and nobody really knows, but based on the tea leaves that you're seeing today, what should we be getting ready for or be expecting on some level?
Sure. So, lot of different things that are causing me concern. Sticking with the OSHA theme, one of the things that I know is going to come out here shortly is heat illness and injury standard. There were a couple of recent press releases that came out from OSHA. One was on September 9th, the other was on September 20th, that talked about the fact that they were going to create a national emphasis program on heat injury and illness. And this is what I think our listeners should really understand, is that what they are going to do is target any job site or any facility where the heat index is greater than 80 degrees. Now, I'm speaking to you here in Florida. 80 degrees is a nice winter day for us. So, what that means is it basically gives OSHA the opportunity to step on any job site without those prior type of justifications that they need. They can simply go on there and say, "Hey, are you feeling hydrated? You got enough water?" And then while they're out there, they can say, "Oh, I see 4 guys on a roof without fall protection." So I have a lot of concerns about that. What's going to happen is, in-depth rulemaking that will happen probably in the beginning of 2022. I also anticipate that whatever this final rule will be on this emergency temporary standard for COVID and the enforcement of vaccines will be out shortly, probably this year, with a ton of different legal challenges that will probably prevent its enforcement until whatever is left over until 2022. So those are the two biggest things that I see on the horizon. The other thing is I know that a portion of the Silica Standard, they were going to add some additional information there as far as ways to help limit it, some other alternative ways to do it to make it a little easier. I also anticipate that we'll see that in 2022. I'm primarily concerned about more enforcement, though, because I think you're going to see more hiring for OSHA, more enforcement, and more citations.
Wow. So for those that don't know, what is the Silica Standard that you're talking about, or what could you explain about that?
Sure. So the Silica Standard, it applies to anybody that is cutting anything that's got silica in it. So it's mortar, concrete, clay tile, anything that potentially has silica in it. And the alleged concern is that if you inhale silica, that it could cause what's known as silicosis, and it's an illness that can potentially be fatal. So OSHA, probably 5 or 6 years ago, came out with the Silica Standard, which is incredibly difficult to understand, very difficult to enforce as well. And one of the things that they're trying to do is really streamline it so they can probably enforce it a little bit better. It affects most of construction, really, because if you think about what you're doing, more than likely you're mixing something that's got concrete or mortar or clay or something that potentially has silica in it. So it caught a lot of people off guard 5, 6 years ago. And this is sort of an opportunity to make it a little bit easier, I think, for OSHA to ultimately cite people. Hopefully there will be some good stuff in there as well for contractors.
Yeah, there's like you say, 1-2 punch. It just seems like there's always something coming. So
Right.
it's good that we have industry experts like yourself to help us keep this stuff on our radar and keep aware, so we're in compliance, and especially don't get hit with a roundhouse that we never saw coming.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So tell me this: is there anything positive that you're excited about for 2022?
Yeah, I had the pleasure of being one of the speakers at the National Safety Conference and Expo, and I was one of the few lawyers that was present and had a real opportunity to talk to safety professionals all over the U.S. and beyond. It's a giant show. I think next to the World of Concrete, it's probably the biggest show out there. During those conversations, I had a lot of interesting comments made about the emergence of technology and the use of technology to really help safety. So I'll give you a real world example. Probably 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago, I was invited out to one of my clients' job sites in Orlando, Central Florida, and they're currently using one of the robot dogs to not only act as security but also to do safety inspections. So this is a way where the safety director can sit at his or her laptop or back in the home office, use something else to actively monitor safety and make changes in the field if necessary through microphones and communication. But you can see where automation and a lot of this stuff is going to come into play to reduce potential hazards, and that excites me. I'm always looking, at what the future holds. I think AR and VR is going to be really important for safety training moving forward. So I think, yes, while I think OSHA is going to enforce more and cite more, I do think there's a lot of opportunity for all industries to really embrace the technology that's out there and figure out better ways to keep our employees safe.
Yeah, I like that. So at the safety conference, did they do sort of a presentation or a demonstration of that dog, and how was that used?
Yeah, not at that conference. I didn't see it there. I saw it in person when I went out to this job site, and
Oh,
they're not
cool.
cheap. They right now the cost is around $75,000 stock, and then if you add stuff on it, there's more on it. So you have to really get some use out of it. The thing that a lot of people need to understand is if you factor in what the cost of having somebody on site to do that, over time, and this person, the dog doesn't get, yeah, you got to charge the batteries, but you don't have to worry about the dog getting hurt. You don't have to worry about the dog complaining. It's just going to do what it's got to do. So that's one of the things I think is really cool, is being able to integrate a lot of different functions in one piece of automation. Some interesting things I did see out there was use of nanotechnology in clothing, using gold filaments and other things to help reinforce a lot of the work clothing that people are using. A lot of use of sensors and other things within hard hats, helmets, and other things to monitor things like heat stress, other health conditions, all that kind of stuff. Using safety vests that also have that type of monitoring in it. Really incredible equipment that people are coming out with, and I think a lot of this is coming out of necessity. Right now, one of the biggest issues that we have is lack of skilled labor in almost every industry. Anytime that you've got a gap between supply and demand, technology usually fills that, right? So that's why I think, machines, AI, AR, VR, all these types of things are ultimately going to decrease what our labor burden needs to be to produce and provide the services that we're currently providing.
Yeah, great point. And even to your point, the robotic dog can't get COVID either, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I was trying to convince everybody that we needed one around here, but I haven't gotten anybody to sign up on that yet. Price
Oh,
is too
shoot.
steep. So
72 months of payment, zero interest.
yeah, exactly.
Or you'd rather buy the new Tesla.
Right. Right.
Well, lots of exciting things, technologically speaking, and I'm glad you're bringing up those types of things as it relates to safety, because I'm a big advocate of trying to leverage technology in construction. I think we are doing a better job of that more recently, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And you being an attorney, that's feels nice to hear you talking about that kind of proactive and more, playing defense in advance, and as opposed to, trying to go back and repair and fix something that went wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the big things in construction is just like lawyers and accountants and insurance. It's very slow to evolve and change. But I think we're at sort of a tipping point where we have to embrace technology. Otherwise, there's going to be an outside disruptor that comes in and does it for us. And I'd much rather be the tip of the spear than have the spear pointed at me. So
Yeah. Great analogy. Well, it's been a lot of fun. Again, I've appreciated having you on. I appreciate you talking about kind of those things that we need to be heads up on as it relates to legislation. I think the reminder on the safety is also great. If there was one thing that you want the listeners to take away from this refresher discussion we're having now, what would that be?
I think it would be that the key thing that OSHA, or for that matter, a lot of the different regulatory agencies are looking for, is to make sure that policies and procedures are drilled down from the top to the bottom. So, management and a lot of the people that may be listening, they're not necessarily the issue. It's the people that are out in the field, right? It's very important to maintain that culture of safety. And the best way to do that, even in sort of COVID times, is a combination of virtual and the occasional hands-on training. You've got to still have that face-to-face communication to a certain extent, obviously following CDC guidelines. But I'm a big believer in getting in front of somebody, showing somebody how to be safe, and drilling it into them. The other thing I would say is invest in your workers. It is so easy to get credentials like an OSHA 10 or an OSHA 30. You don't have to sit for 10 or 30 hours to do it. You can go online and do it. There are a lot of other ways to do it. If I can get an OSHA 10 or an OSHA 30, anybody can do it. So always a big believer in investing in your employees. It is, even if they end up leaving you, they're better trained and they're going to elevate the industry as a whole. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, what a great attitude. And I appreciate the spirit and the vigor that you continue to have with the industry. Again, I got to see you at Best of Success and watch you interact with the customers and the companies. And you obviously have a great relationship with many of these companies, and they have a lot of trust in what you're doing. So thank you for what you're doing for the industry. We appreciate it. And really look forward to catching up again down the road on another update.
Yeah, would love to anytime.
Sounds great. Thanks again, Trent.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on the Mobile Workforce Podcast, sponsored by About Time Technologies and WorkMax. If you liked the conversation we had today, or were able to learn anything new or helpful, please make sure to follow us on our WorkMax page on LinkedIn and on Instagram at WorkMax_. And subscribe to the show on iTunes or your preferred podcast platform so you will never miss another insightful episode. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review and share the show with your friends and colleagues. Your support means the world to us and will allow us to continue providing impactful information with others looking to improve their results in their business and, in turn, their life.